you can just use the pattern. So here's what we're going to have here. R equals 0. That one's the easy one. You don't have to do any math. It's going to cancel this. It's 7 pi over 24. 24, I put 12. All right. Every one after this now is going to go up by 12, just like this did. So at one rotation, the next answer go up by 12, and that should be 19 pi's over 24. That one still works. So there's an answer. 2 rotations. Go up by 12 more here. So that's going to give me x equals 31 pi over 24. Still under 2 pi. That one's good. 3 rotations. Add another 12 here. That gives you what? 43 pi's over 24. That one's still good because that's less than 2 pi. And then the next one's going to be the one that fails. A lot of times they're going to fail at the same rotation, but not always. So don't just assume that they do. But in this case, they do. If I go up 12 more, I'm at 55 pi's over 24. And that's bigger than 2 pi. And there we go. It cancels. You end up with two sets of answers. This equation got you 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This equation got you 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Now I want to point out something that you have to be on the lookout for. When I said over here that you can use the same pattern that you found over here, that is 100% true. But remember what I said about that. That is only if the equations have the same denominator. This is a pi over 24 and so is this. If they're not the same denominator, you can't use that pattern because that pattern of going up by 12 is based on being over 24. So looking back at one of the other homework problems, look at number 4 from that same worksheet. Those were your answers right here. If you look at the 4 equations, and yes, it does stink when there's 4 because you're going to have to find answers for each one of them. That's a pi over 12, that's a pi over 12, that's a pi over 12. Which means once you find the pattern for this one, you're going to be good to go. You can use it here, here, and here. But you're not going to be able to use it for this one because that's a pi over 4. So here's my suggestion. When you guys go to do these, if they don't have the same denominator, change it so that it does. If I want this to be a pi over 12, all I have to do is multiply the top and bottom by 3, and it becomes 3 pi over 12 plus 2 pi r over 3. And now all your equations are over 12. So once you find the pattern here, you can use it here, use it off of this equation, that one, and then you're going to have all your answers. Now, you do have to simplify answers. Don't leave 3 pi over 12 as a final answer. So even when you put 0 in here and get 3 pi over 12, I still want you then to simplify it back to pi over 4 for your final answer. If it were a test or quiz, you would definitely lose points for something like that. But so that you can make your life easier and do that whole pattern thing, that's the route you're going to want to go. All right. Now, I will tell you guys, some of these will be very easy because once you try to do rotations, like it won't even work. Because if you looked at trig equations number 2, I'll just show you the answers real quick. So if you guys have it, trig equations number 2, just look at the answers on the first 2 problems. This says plus 4 pi r, which means when you put one rotation in there, you're going to be adding 4 pi's to that. Well, that's going to be too big already. So one rotation isn't even going to work. And that happens. If don't think that you have to go 4 rotations deep or 5 or 6. You might only go 1 rotation and then the second rotation doesn't work. Sometimes 0 rotations won't even work. If you put 0 in here, that's 20 over 3, which is 6. That's 6 2/3 pi. Yeah, that's going to fail right off the bat. You only leave answers that fall between, like the directions say, 0 and 2 pi. Anything that's bigger than that, you have to throw it out. Some problems, you'll end up with a bunch of answers. Some problems, you won't end up with very many at all. All right, we're going to look at one more problem, tangent. So this is number 4. So same deal as before. I'm going to do problem number 1, and I'm going to look to get some type of pattern so that I can use it for problem number 2. So those are your 2 solutions for that problem. I'm going to write these on line paper though. So this is problem number 4 on worksheet 2. So the first answer was pi over 12 plus pi r over 2. This is problem number 4. All right, so I'm going to start doing rotations again. So first thing you do, 0 rotations. That's always easy. You don't have to do any work because 0 in for r would cancel this. You're at pi over 12. Now that definitely falls between 0 and 2 pi. So that's going to be one of my answers. So boxing it up. I got 1 rotation. So now I'm going to put in 1 in here, just like I did before. So it's going to be whatever pi over 12 plus pi over 2 is. Get a common denominator by multiplying this by 6. So this would be 6 pi over 12. Add them together. 1 pi over 12 plus 6 pi over 12 is 7 pi's over 12. You're still good. Still less than 2 pi. 2 rotations. Pi over 12 plus, now we're going to put a 2 in up here, and that's 2 pi over 2. Same thing up here as I did up here. Multiply top and bottom by 6. So that's going to be 12 pi's over 12. Now you can add them. 1 pi over 12 plus 12 pi over 12 is 13 pi's over 12. And now you should be able to recognize your pattern. Look at your 3 problems, your 3 answers. That's 1 pi over 12. That went to 7 pi's over 12. So it went up 6. This went to 13, up another 6. So you can just keep going up 6 each time. The pattern's different for each problem. You know, some of them might end up being the same, but that's what it's going to do. I'm not even going to write rotations now. I'm just going to write the other answers. So I have these 3. If I go up 6, that's going to be 19 pi's over 12. That one still works. If I go up another 6, it's 25 pi's over 12. That one fails. That's bigger than 2 pi. 25 over 12 is 2 and 1/12. So that one's too big. I'm going to cross it out, and I got 4 answers. Now, I can use that same pattern with the second equation. So the second equation for number 4 was, where is it? X equals 7 pi over 12 plus pi r over 2. So really, when you get to the other equations, you don't have to write the rotations in because you're just going to be using the pattern. So here's what you know. 0 rotations is always going to be this. So there's your first answer, 7 pi over 12. The pattern here was go up by 6. So if I go up by 6 to that, the next answer, 13 pi over 12. Go up 6 more, 19 pi over 12. Go up 6 more, 25 pi's over 12, and that's the one that fails. Now, my hope is that you never got to this point because